But the title of my topic, First the Seed, you say, what in the world is she talking about? Well, I want to give a little background on where this came from. Now, I was raised in a religion that really didn't read the Bible. Once in a while, we would have passages from the Bible, and that was just to emphasize some of the dictates that the religion was teaching, and it all came from the New Testament. So in a sense, I used to think, gee, I wonder what everybody else is reading. They have the big Bible at church, and we didn't have that. So as I got older, I picked up the Bible and I read it strictly as literature because I just wanted to find out what everybody else was reading. And then I started in my fourth year studies here, and one of the units was the Bible. And I found this really interesting because I picked a section that really had nothing to do with the New Testament or the Old Testament. It was the Apocrypha, so I got quite a history on the Bible and how the Bible came about to be where it was. So then came along this year when I'm picking classes for Science of Mind 200. And I thought, gee, let's go ahead and teach a unit on the Bible. A unit on the metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. That would be quite interesting. So I got into the subject, and it's a very serious study, but most enjoyable. And the day came along, I was preparing for the next day's class, and I was reviewing the notes that I had taken. Now, mind you, I had read the assignment several times, and on my assignment for the students is to pick a few passages out of that reading, and why did it come to them and really emphasize something to them or be a wake-up call. So I went through ahead, and I did the same thing for myself, and I'm going through reviewing the passages and why I picked them out. And all of a sudden, reading Luke, I come to verse 11. And it was saying, the parable is this: the seeds are the voice of God. Whoa, that really shook me down to my boot tops. I hadn't read that before, and I don't know how many times I had read this. At that second thought of that was, in the beginning was the Word. So here we have seeds are the thoughts of God. In the beginning was the Word, and I put those two together. Oh my goodness, my thoughts are the seeds of God. I had better be careful of my thoughts, because just like weeds, these thoughts are growing. So that was really a wake-up call for me. It was sort of, this is something we don't fool around with. This is serious stuff. And I thought, all these years I've gone along and I thought, I have silly thoughts I didn't really pay much attention to, not realizing the seriousness of the thoughts. And we're taught here all the time that thoughts are things. And we just say, oh, well, that's part of our teaching, thoughts are things, and that's just more words, until all of a sudden you take a hold of it like a dog takes a hold of a bone and really chews on it, and you get the meat out of it. So that was my wake-up call there. And as I got going along, I've noticed seeds. This time of year, there's a lot of seeds out there. And as you can see, those seeds are sprouting. A couple of weeks ago, the Mercury News had a banner headline that said, "Spring seeds, summer eats." So here it was, a whole different section, but seeds are producing. There again, we're reminded seeds are producing. This time of year, the seed catalogs are coming into everybody's home. And the nurseries are featuring seed packets of flowers and seed packets of vegetables in preparation for that harvest in the spring, in the summer. So this is the time that we start thinking about seeds. It's the beginning of the growth cycle. First, the seed. This is the beginning of our year, the springtime, the time when we have the seeds. So I got playing around with that idea, and it took me into nature. And I thought, okay, nature is sort of a metaphor for our thoughts. But what does the gardeners do this time of year? The gardeners are busy getting their seeds in the ground for the summer. What does the gardener do? Well, the first thing that the gardener does is pull up the weeds. He has to get those weeds out so that there's a place to plant the seeds. And then the gardener goes ahead and prepares the soil and adds the nutrients. And then the gardener goes ahead and finds the right location to plant these seeds. Then he moves on. He has to water the seeds. In other words, nurture the growth of the seeds. And then the fifth step is to know that what he has planted is what's going to come up. If the gardener planted tomato seeds, he's definitely not going to harvest onions. And if he planted nasturtiums, he's not going to pick violas. So I'm thinking, oh, how does this apply to the mind? You know, what does spring have to do with these seeds of God planted in our mind? It was quite interesting in Ernest Holmes, in his This Thing Called You. He states, not only human beings, but everything in nature is endowed with the creative urge. Everything must find fulfillment or perish. I'm thinking, okay, our mind is like nature. Everything in our mind must be fulfilled or perish. In other words, nature says, create and grow or perish. So we're either moving forward or we're regressing. And what are we doing with these mind seeds of ours? Are we moving forward? Are we growing? Or are we regressing? So this is something we have to stop and think about. How I got thinking mind seeds. How the gardener puts the seeds in the ground. What do we do with these mind seeds? Oh my goodness. The soil is our mind. And how are we preparing our mind soil to put in these thought seeds? You know, are we opening up? Are we taking care of that mind? What are we doing? Now, to prepare our mind soil, we can go ahead and we can take classes here, and we surround ourselves with like-minded people that support us and don't allow us to trip and stumble on some of these race mind ideas. And we can read books. We have a bookstore full of good books, and we have a lending library here for those of you who would like to partake in the lending library. You know, all good thoughts for the mind. And everything we can do to prepare that mind soil makes that ground richer. And as we nurture that ground and put in the nutrients, we find that that mind soil, just like the soil for our seeds in nature, gets lighter and it feels richer. And as we do this, we're encouraged to move on and continue. Because there is a tendency, I know myself, I get lazy sometimes. And I need that little mental push, or that little thing that's out there in front of me saying, okay, if you go ahead and do it, this is where you're going to be. That's going to get you that much further to where you want to go. So it's as nature, so is the mind. And I thought, let's go and see what we have if we go ahead and use the same steps that the gardener uses.